นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังธัมมังสังฆังนะมัสสามิ Blessings. As you probably know, we've just completed the 3-month range retreat. A few days ago, come to the Katina season, so various monasteries, sanghas are having Katina ceremonies over the next month. Traditionally, it's a time when monastic sanghas often start to travel. They go to visit other monasteries for Katina ceremonies and go here and go there. That can often be a time it's a time of distraction and busyness, and then lay people are busy preparing their various temples and monasteries for events. And it's very easy to forget Dhamma practice, or at least some aspects of the practice. Of course, we might not forget the Buddha, or we don't forget to do the practice of generosity and dana, but even the practice of precept sometimes goes out of the window when the end of the range retreat comes. People have been disciplined, keeping the 5 precepts, and then they start drinking again, or hunting, killing again, or lying again, or cheating on their partner again. I hope not. But there's that sense of the restraint is sort of fades. The effort people put into being restrained and mindful of their speech, their actions often fades, and then precepts start to crumble. And then they wonder why their meditation also crumbles, fades away. And that's partly because precepts and mindfulness and meditation all go together. It's all part of one, training the mind in the Noble Eightfold Path. So if you start to drop in one area of your practice, well, other areas will be affected. And we've always got good excuses. We've got work to do and families to look after and places to go. But the reality is maybe your mind suffers for that. You're not so aware, you're not so wise, you're not so careful with what you think, what you say, what you do. Even though you can say, well, it's a busy time because I'm doing good things in temples and doing volunteering and helping do this good activity and this charity and that thing. But the reality is often we are not very mindful and careful of what we're doing with our minds at this time. So it's a good time to keep vigilant and preserve whatever good things you learn in the 3-month range retreat. It's a time to learn and preserve that. If you've been developing meditation on a regular basis, well, keep up that practice. Don't stop now. If you've been keeping precepts, well, keep it up. And many people I have known over the years have taken on certain practices and precepts during their 3-month range retreats, such as giving up alcohol, for example. And then they decide it was really worth it. It was a good thing for them. So by the end of the range retreat, they're ready to just carry on not drinking, for example. It's almost like you could see the value, see the benefits of the increased discipline and effort you may have put into your practice over the last 3 months. And they say, well, do I really want to lose that? Do I want to lose what I've learned and the good practices I've built up? Because all the practice is developed to help us reduce the causes of suffering from our heart. Deep down, the cause of suffering is ignorance. unawareness of the Four Noble Truths. And when there's unawareness, we tend to follow greed, anger, and delusion in our behavior, and we suffer. But the practice is going in the other direction. It's helping us to reduce greed, anger, delusion. Because it can be reduced. It can be reduced, and ultimately it can be abandoned. And that's the whole premise of the Buddhist teaching, is based on that point. Greed, anger, delusion that affects our mind causes us suffering, but when we recognize that and abandon greed, anger, delusion, we suffer less. And if we abandon all greed, anger, and delusion, we don't suffer at all. While we're still affected by greed, anger, and delusion in our makeup, our mental makeup, our conditioning, then we're called an unenlightened person, a patujana. One who's thick with mental defilements, greed, anger, and delusion. One who has scraped off their greed, anger, and delusion. Sort of sounds painful, but then some of the practice can be quite painful, can't it? But one who has scraped away greed, anger, and delusion may become a sotapanna, first stage of enlightenment. Got less greed, less anger, less delusion. I mean, in particular, they've abandoned the first three fetters that bind the mind to suffering, to rebirth, to the world. That's Sakkaya Ditthi, personality view, Vicikicca, skeptical down, and Sila Pattabaramasa, a blind or fumbling attachment to precepts and practices. They've abandoned those three by sharpening the level of their mindfulness and insight, wisdom. They no longer are deluded by those first three fetters, seen through them, broken through them. A bit like the baby bird, which we have lots of at this time of year, being spring in Australia. We have lots of baby birds hatching at the moment, pecking their way out of eggs. It's a bit like that, previously stuck inside the egg thinking that's all there is to life, and then pecking their way through, sort of intuitively, to the fresh air, the light, and the other things that the world has to offer. It's like us, unless we've heard the Dhamma and had that spark of faith arise, we may be sort of stuck in our shell, going through life, not really knowing that there's anything more than the kind of normal suffering that we're experiencing as a human being under the influence of greed, anger, delusion. Until at some point our intuition says there must be more than this, or something better than this, and we start practicing the Dhamma, developing mindfulness, developing insight, and pecking through the shell of our ignorance that has been kind of covering over the mind for so long. Over and over again we find that why do people not progress in their Dhamma practice? Why do things stagnate or even fall backwards? One of the biggest things is we're just afraid or don't want to face suffering and use suffering as our teacher. We'd rather just distract ourselves, get rid of the suffering, rather than look at it as a noble truth. So that's why, even in Buddhist countries, the end of the rains retreat, people have been facing a bit of suffering, doing meditation, sitting, walking meditation, listening to Dhamma, putting forth more effort, keeping the precepts, and that brought up some suffering or got them to face up to suffering, but then they feel tired of doing that because suffering is hard work. So then after the rains, it's party time. So you have lots of Buddhist festivals at this time in Asia, which means good food, music, entertainment. So when I used to live in Thailand, this was always the month, the Katina month was always the time that meditation became the most challenging, because all the villages around where I used to stay would start having Katina festivals, which meant party. Strangely enough, in sort of rural Thailand, often a Katina festival will mean more drinking, more partying, dancing, music, and loud music all night long. So meditation became quite challenging. And you'd sit there listening to these loud sound systems through the night, trying to maintain mindfulness and not get agitated by the distraction or just the throbbing sound, which often went from like 7 in the evening until 5 a.m. And as the night progresses, you can hear this with the sound system. You could hear everything that is said and sung. And then, as the night progresses, the singers get more drunk. So then the singing gets worse, the rhythm and the music gets worse, and by dawn, you just got this kind of drunken noise. So if you ever do your meditation and you're sitting through that or walking through that, whatever you're doing, it's a kind of interesting reflection on how humans get intoxicated with drink and music and partying, but at the same time it's a little bit inclines you towards just being fed up with the world and not really wanting to be around in the world anymore. And unfortunately, at this time of year, this is what's going on night after night. Sometimes you escape, you say, I'm going off to a quiet bit of forest somewhere, and then you just arrive there, and then that night the music starts up and the local village has just hired a sound system and everyone comes. It's very difficult to escape these Buddhist festival parties and the loud news and loud music and all the accompanying intoxication. But it's just one of the things you've got to learn to be with. And we always bring up that reflection, like Ajahn Chah, when he went to England, he, the first time, went to stay in the Hampstead Vihara in the High Street in Hampstead, North London, opposite the pub. And just as they started their evening meditation, the live music started at the same time. It was summer, so the windows were open, and everyone was sitting there listening to this loud rock music bellowing in through the window, looking at Ajahn Chah. All the English meditators were nervous, thinking, oh, the Thai Ajahn is going to be so critical and annoyed with this loud music. But he just sat there very peacefully. And he sat, and he sat, and he sat. And he didn't move for several hours. Meanwhile, all these other people were getting agitated by the music. But Ajahn Chah just became very peaceful, because obviously he was an expert. He knew what to do with his mind in that situation. Probably because he'd been sitting in the forest meditating through many Katina festivals over the years and knew exactly how to maintain mindfulness under the onslaught of music and drunkenness and whatever. So he just sat through it very blissfully, peacefully, and then at the end somebody asked him, didn't the music disturb you? And he said, you have to ask yourself, is the music disturbing you, or are you letting your mind go out and disturb the music? Anything that disturbs us through the senses is really our mind, through a lack of mindfulness and lack of insight into the Four Noble Truths, going out and grabbing hold of that stimulation, whether it be sound or smell, taste, touch, visual images or just memories. We let our mind go out and get caught up in it, and so we go out and disturb the sense stimulation rather than the sense stimulation stimulating or disturbing us. That's the practice. So although you could say, well, after the Vasa there's all this rushing around and katinas and this happening and that happening, you could also say, well, it's a good opportunity to test your meditation. You could say it's a bit like exam time. Like in Australia at this time of year, the kids are all doing exams. You could say this is your post-range retreat exam period for you, your meditation, to see whether you're going to get caught out by all the travel and the festivities and the dana and the activities? Is this going to throw you off? Are you going to become one of those people who gets angry and upset during the Katina festival because it's not going the way you want? And that's something you see every year. You go to some monastery, some temple, and there are lots of very well-meaning volunteers preparing things, organizing things, and then something goes wrong and they argue and blame each other, and the 3 months rains period has ended, and now the mindfulness has dropped and people get back to arguing, even when they're doing something good. It's quite common. So don't let it happen. Carry on practicing after the rains retreat and make your determination. I will carry on doing my volunteering and helping out at the Buddhist center, the temple, the monastery, but I will not give in to anger. I will not argue. I will not lose it. See if you can keep to that that adhitthana, determination. We've all lost it many times, thousands of times since we were born. Over many lifetimes, we've probably got angry and upset with other people, even good Buddhist people doing good things. We probably got upset millions of times if you add them all together. You said, this year, no. I am going to say no to getting angry and upset when I'm doing dana, even if other people are making mistakes or doing the wrong thing or saying stupid things or whatever happens. I am not going to give in to anger. You could make that your Katina festival time practice. I remember my first Katina festival in Thailand. I was an anagarika at Wat Nanachat, and we went to a monastery, Tham Seng Phet, where unfortunately the abbot, Luang Por Thun, just passed away, and they're going to have his funeral soon. But I went to his monastery for his Katina, and we drove there, and on the way we witnessed a terrible road accident, which is unfortunately quite common in Thailand. And a husband and wife were driving on a motorbike, and they crashed into the car in front of us, some little truck, head-on collision, and the husband survived and wasn't hurt too much. But the wife, I think she was thrown off the motorbike and crashed her skull on the road and died instantly, and her skull was broken open, so you could see her lying dead on the floor. It was very sad and very kind of gruesome, unfortunate kind of image, which stays with me today. And then the husband was getting very angry because his wife had just died in shocking circumstances, so he's running around getting angry with the other driver and getting angry because no one could revive his wife because she was dead and no one could help. And that was that's my memory of my first Katina. Unfortunate poor lady dying very traumatically, and her angry husband getting angry with everyone around. I was very new to Buddhism, so I felt sorry for him, but I didn't think, I should practice metta meditation. But I think that's what I'd do now in that situation. I would just sit there and meditate, spreading metta to the man and then to the wife who had just died, maybe to help her consciousness calm down in that terrible situation. And then we went off to Katina, and the actual Katina ceremony was in an Ajahn monastery, which is very restrained and peaceful. There was no music and no dancing. It was quite a pleasant occasion where thousands of people came up onto the mountain, because it's a mountain monastery. And the first speaker, like Ajahn Chah temples, the tradition is on Katina you have multiple speakers, sometimes all night from sort of 9 p.m. after the evening meditation, 9 p.m. through till 5 a.m. You'll get Dhamma speakers going through the whole night. Different monks are invited to teach, and people will sit up, and literally hundreds of people sat up meditating, listening to Dhamma talks through the night. It's freezing cold because it was on a mountain and there was a strong wind, the cold wind that comes from China. In the Thai winter you get that. So we all sat there, and you couldn't fall asleep because it was so cold. So perhaps cold air can have its advantage, and you can use it again to contemplate. Rather than get angry with the cold air, you just contemplate the cold feeling and what it does to your body and what it might do to your mind. So I practice a lot of mindfulness of dukkha vedana, with this cold feeling on the skin. But I remember I couldn't speak much Thai, but I could speak a little bit of Thai. And the first teacher who got up on the high chair to give a talk was a monk, one of Luang Por Chah's most senior disciples, called Luang Por Mahasupong. And he's passed away now, but one of his favourite subjects was body contemplation and the practice of what we call mindfulness directed to the body, Kaya Gata Satipatthana, contemplating the 32 parts of the body, the 4 elements, and the 10 corpse meditations. So all these people who had gathered for a Katina celebration, all very happy to be there, they got a nice talk all about the unattractiveness of the body and how the body is like a corpse. And in northeast Thailand, sometimes they actually interrupt the Dhamma talk with a comment. In most places, a monk gives a Dhamma talk, everyone is silent and listens respectfully, which is good. But sometimes in northeast Thailand, people will make a comment during the middle. And one granny, one of the older ladies who was sitting there and been sitting there for a while, she said, "Why are you talking all about the unattractiveness of the human body? This is a Katina celebration. We want to be happy. We don't want to hear this." So he answered it. He said, "Because this is the way you'll get enlightened. This is the way to enlightenment. It's the very first foundation of mindfulness that the Buddha taught. If you're not willing to contemplate the body as it is and see the body as it is, the body in the body, you won't progress in your Dhamma practice." And a Katina celebration is a day for celebrating the Dhamma and the Vinaya. And so it's a quite appropriate subject to talk about the foundations of mindfulness. And he said, and another practical reason is, he said, at that time he was about, I guess maybe 60 years old. He said, even though I'm 60 years old, when I sit up here on the high chair, even the grannies look good. Because he's a celibate monk. And when you're a celibate monk, living celibate in the forest for many years, well, you still have lust. Unless you're an arahant, you still have lust. And so he said, even I need to contemplate the body. So that's why I'm talking about it tonight. And so Granny, who had made the comment, seemed satisfied and carried on meditating. And he proceeded to give a very nice lecture on the unattractiveness of the human body. And he talked all about how when you die, your body turns into a corpse and goes cold, and it starts to weep with the different liquids which come out, and it swells up and changes colour, and then maggots come to settle, flies lay their eggs, and maggots start to eat the body, and it's smelly, and then it gradually dries out and becomes a skeleton, and then the bones get pulled apart by the birds and the animals, and in the end nothing is left and you just get emptiness. So I gave a very nice talk all about contemplation of the body, how it leads from A to Z, meaning from start off with a nice, beautiful, attractive human body, but ultimately it will get old, get sick, die, become a corpse, disappear, and eventually become empty, become nothing. You know, how many people have died in this world since the world began? The Buddha said, you know, if you piled up just your own previous lifetimes, you piled up all the bones from your previous bodies, you'd have a mountain of bones. That's just one person. You multiply that by billions of people who have been born and died in the world. There's not a single corner of this world where nobody has died. And the whole world would be covered with bones if you kept all the bones from all the people who died. That's the truth. But we don't like to see this truth. We like, or we prefer, ignorance. Just like the lady who questioned why he was giving a talk about the unattractiveness of the body. You know, we prefer the attractiveness of the body. We like beautiful pictures and images of the human body. We want to look good ourselves, feel good, look good, be healthy, be strong, be attractive. We want other people around us to be strong, attractive. If you're selling anything in this world, you'll sell it usually with pictures of people who are strong, attractive, and so on. Everything is based around this because this is what makes the defilements tick. Greed, anger, and delusion is centered around what we call Kama Danha or Kama Raka. And so one of the duties of monks, sometimes one of the challenging or difficult duties of monks, is to remind everyone that that's delusion and based on delusion. As long as we're deluded by the attractiveness of the body, we're going to suffer. We suffer the disappointment when our body isn't as attractive as we would like. We suffer the loss when it was once attractive and then we lose it. We suffer the suffering of desire, desiring the bodies of other people, chasing after them, wanting them, and so on and so on. It makes the world go round. And we all know anyone with money, wealth, fame, fortune, power in this world tends to surround themselves with beautiful people if they can. Generally, that's how it goes. That's what the world wants. But it's delusion, isn't it? It's not seeing the Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths is telling us this human body is impermanent, unsatisfactory, not self, and it's unattractive. Even the beautiful body, when you lift the skin on it, underneath the skin, inside, is not attractive. And as the beautiful body ages, it gets more and more unattractive until eventually it dies. So that was my first Katina ceremony, a very horrible car accident, and then a talk all about the unattractiveness of the body, and then the rest of the night sitting up freezing in a cold wind, not falling asleep and struggling with the dukkha vedana of a cold wind, but then contemplating the Four Noble Truths. That's why we're still unenlightened Putujanas, because we haven't contemplated the Four Noble Truths enough. We haven't really seen them. So the monk's duty is to remind you of that, point it out, and give you some encouragement to keep coming back. Don't give up on the Four Noble Truths, don't give up on contemplating this body, even though it's after the rains and you probably want to just party and travel. Nowadays everyone goes abroad, goes here, goes there, does this, does that. It's the summer in Australia, so everyone is going out, enjoying life. Well, on one hand you can say that's their merit, their good fortune, but on the other hand you say beware, because it can be the basis for delusion and attachment. And we love to just convince ourselves that life is going along happily and we look good, feel good, the weather's good, everything is good, and we've got money in our pocket and we can go here and go there and do this and do that. But it's all impermanent, isn't it? Nothing lasts. The weather doesn't last. The clothes on our back don't last. All the good things of this world, this body, doesn't last. We don't last forever. Oh, there's a thunderstorm. The weather changes. Here in Melbourne, we're just having a thunderstorm. But it's just a reminder, isn't it? Everything is impermanent. The world keeps turning, and you can't turn the clock back and make your body like you would like it to be 10 years ago or 20 years ago. It doesn't do that, does it? It only gets older. It only goes towards death. It doesn't go back towards birth. These are simple truths that we have to accept and have to reflect on to start removing the ignorance that conditions our mind. Why do we suffer? It's because we are unaware of the Four Noble Truths. So we keep attaching to things, saying this belongs to me, my body belongs to me, my pleasures belong to me, the things of this world belong to me. And we keep grasping at them, hoping to keep everything just how we like. And so we suffer with all that struggling and competition and effort. I was telling the lay people this morning at the meal about the monk who was addicted to rice sweets in Thailand. It's a very good kind of simile for the way we attach to this world. When I was a young monk, we'd go out on the end of the range, you'd go out we'd actually go out into the local town on alms round. Everyone would come out in the town of Warin, it's called, in northeast Thailand. And they would give you these little rice sweets. It's a kind of custom at the end of the rains. And they're very nice rice sweets. Inside there's some banana or some black beans and sugar, and they taste nice. And they wrap them in banana leaves, so they're very easy to pass from one person to another. And they fill your bowl with them, and then you empty your bowl out. There'll be someone helping you, and then they fill more into your bowl. So you end up with mountains and mountains of rice sweets. And then all the monks come back to the temple and they pile them up on big trays. So you literally get mountains of rice sweets, which are shared with everyone, the monks and then everyone else. But there was one monk who was addicted to his rice sweets, and he was very particular, and there were certain kinds of rice sweets that he thought were better than others. And one day I came up and he was underneath a mountain of rice sweets, all these rice sweets wrapped in banana leaves, piled up like a meter or two high before they'd gone back to the kitchen. He was underneath them trying to find one underneath the mountain. I said, "What are you doing? What are you looking for?" He said, "I'm trying to find the sweet one, the best one." He obviously really liked them. I said, "Why are you going to that trouble?" Because he's having to move them all and took ages, and he was getting really sticky because they always leak sugar, so you get really sticky fingers. I said, "They all taste nice, they're all good, why don't you just take the one on the top, the nearest one?" He said, "No, I've got to get the best one. They hide the best ones underneath." I guess he was into conspiracy theories, and he thought that they hid the best ones underneath. So he spent ages getting the best ones and got very sticky in the process. And that's his right, they've been offered to the monks, we're allowed to do that, but I felt sorry for him. But I also thought this is how life is, isn't it? We're always looking for the best one, even if it means we have to go under the mountain and move the whole mountain just to find that best one. But even if you find the best one, a little rice sweet lasts like 5 seconds, you eat it in a few bites and it's gone. It doesn't last very long and then it's gone. It's a very temporary kind of pleasure. Life is like that. We get addicted to all these temporary pleasures that we can have with this body, the nice tastes, the sounds of the music, the different kinds of pleasures we get, but then none of them last, and yet we spend a whole lifetime running after them. Unless you stop, establish the mindfulness and reflect, these pleasures are impermanent. They're not really self because you can't hold on to them, they just come and go. What comes and goes, you can't say is me, mine, because you can't keep it, can you? We delude ourselves, we say, if I have enough money, I can buy rice sweets anytime I want, which may be true. You could have enough money to eat rice sweets every day of your life, all day, every day, for the rest of your life. But even then, you can't keep the same level of satisfaction after each rice sweet. After a while, you eat one that you decide is not that tasty. And then eventually, as you get older, your teeth will drop out and you'll start getting very ill from eating too many rice sweets. You'll get ill and then you'll die. So it definitely is not a permanent pleasure. And all of life is like that, isn't it? We spend our whole life running after pleasures, different kinds of happiness, and none of it is lasting, and none of it can you say is really self. And yet we do it, year after year, life after life. So the Buddha said, establish the mindfulness, reflect on the Four Noble Truths, see this, see the impermanent nature and how this grasping and attachment causes you suffering. And then what's the obvious thing to do? Let go. Let go of the grasping and the attachment. Letting go doesn't mean to say you can't have another rice sweet. You can if one comes your way, I guess. But don't grasp at it. Don't attach to it so strongly that you spend your life being a slave to rice sweets and all the other things that we attach to. Attachment is teaching us something. It's saying, oh, your mind keeps thinking of that thing, wanting that thing, running after that thing. You're suffering. You can let go. If you get it, you have the conditions to have it, fine. If you don't, never mind. Let it go. Don't attach so tightly that you're hurting yourself, that you're causing suffering. Each time you crave something, whether it's with desire or aversion, you're reinforcing that habit. That's why we can say we've been angry 1,000 times easily, because each time you're angry, you're conditioning, reinforcing the habit to get angry again. Each time you've desired rice sweets or anything else that you want, you're conditioning the mind to want it again. You're reinforcing the habit until you're just stuck with that. Every time you think of a rice sweet, you want one. Every time you smell one, see one, you want one. You're just stuck. As long as there's no mindfulness and no insight, you just keep following craving and attachment, and it gets worse. So the Buddha said, you have to learn how to stop that whole process. Introduce mindfulness, introduce wise reflection. Everything is impermanent, not self. When you can see that, then you start letting go. Even if you get a rice sweet, you don't grasp at it so tightly that it causes you suffering. You can eat it, then you forget about it, you move on. If you're mindful enough. When we're not mindful, we're just grasping at everything. We grasp at this body, my body, beautiful body, other people's beautiful body. That's another reflection, isn't it? Every time I go back to Thailand, I go back to the same monasteries I used to stay in. Often at the end of Vasa, at the end of the rains, the people who come out and like to put rice sweets in your bowl are the kids. Little 10-year-old boys and girls, they like to do it, it's fun. They give some to the monks and then they have the sweets themselves. But they do it every year, so they get older. I've been a monk 41 years now. So some of those 10-year-olds are now 50 or 60. So I've seen, I've seen them grow up from being little kids, teenagers, young people, middle-aged people, now entering old age. They change. Lumpur Cha used to say, watch the hands of the people who give you food as a monk. You do this. When they're young, they're nice, smooth skin, good-looking hands, nice nails, attractive. Next few years, still attractive, but gradually, progressively over the years, the hand changes. The wrinkles come, the nails get a bit dirtier, more damaged. The wrinkles come, you get a few scars, maybe a few dirty marks or different marks. After many years, the hand is no longer attractive. Same hand, same person, but it changes, doesn't it? So Ajahn Chah said, for a monk, this is what you do. You keep looking at the hand that puts the food in the bowl and you'll see the truth, what we call Satcha Dhamma. Lumpur Plian used to have a variation on that. He used to say, when you're a junior monk, don't knock it that you're walking at the end of the line. Like when you walk on Bindabata in the villages in Thailand, often there's 5 monks or 10 monks walking in a line. And the first monk will obviously receive food first from the lay people who stand outside their houses. Often the first monk gets the best food, the most food. If there's 10 monks in a line, maybe the one at the very end only gets a little bit of rice, not much left, because all the food has been given to the more senior monks. But Lumpur Plian used to say, don't knock it, because that first person puts their hand out to put food in your bowl. Maybe they've been making their fire. In those days, it's like charcoal fire, so their hand is kind of black, grimy. Maybe they work the fields, they've been building fire, working hard, their hands are quite dirty. But they put the rice in your bowl, it's sticky rice. The second monk, a bit more of the dirt comes off on the bowl of sticky rice. The third monk, a bit more dirt comes off, and they put in your bowl of the third monk. By the time they get the 10th monk, the hands are really clean. so they get really clean food. This is no offense to lay people, it's just a fact of life. So you learn a lot from people's hands. They age, sometimes they're clean, sometimes they're dirty, sometimes people have clean nails, sometimes dirty nails, and so on. You learn, you see all of life like that, just from hands. Your own hands, other people's hands. That's the truth. In order to see the truth, know the truth, you have to be mindful, you have to be aware, paying attention. If you're walking as a monk, you're walking along collecting food and you're just thinking about all the things you like or don't like and lost in the clouds, well, you'll miss this. Or if you're just looking for the person that's attractive, or you maybe not notice that which is unattractive. Have you ever noticed, like, if you're really focused on always seeing the beautiful, what is not beautiful you miss, because you're looking for the beautiful. So very simple activities like somebody putting food in your bowl, whether you're the one giving or the one receiving, they can teach you a lot of Dhamma, not just the Dhamma of generosity and kindness, which is obviously the foundation of it, but you also see aging, you see change, you see a whole range of truths. And if you do this practice every day for a lifetime, well, you see people age. People who are 10 years old, 20 years old, maybe they grow up, become 40 years old, 50 years old. Perhaps I shouldn't say this, but there was one lady in northeast Thailand who was the kind of like the beauty queen, rich, beautiful, and she had great faith in Ajahn Chah and used to go to the monastery and offer food, and she was very rich, so she offered fine things to the monks and built meditation halls because she had a lot of money. Her husband was a businessman. So she was like kind of the star, one of the stars of the monasteries. But of course, over time she aged. And Ajahn Chah aged as well. And by the time Ajahn Chah was an old man, she was an old lady. There's one time she was coming to the monastery to make an offering, and there were some young monks with Ajahn Chah, and he wanted to teach them something very difficult and private, because you can't really say this in public, but in private he said to the monks, he said, see this lady coming, he said, she used to be the most beautiful lady in the whole city, rich, beautiful, sought after by all the men. Now she's not much better than a frog. Which is not said in offence. He's trying to teach the monks that the human body changes. So whether you're a man or a woman, it's the same. You know, you start off young and attractive, you end up like a frog. And now, if you're open to the Four Noble Truths, to mindfulness, that's the truth of it, isn't it? Everyone ages, everyone starts ending up looking more or less like a frog or whatever other animal you want to choose. Nothing lasts, does it? However beautiful you were to start with, you don't end up beautiful. Certainly once you're in a coffin, definitely not beautiful. Even though they work very hard, when you're in a coffin, they'll work hard to make you look nice. They'll put makeup on you, dress you up in your best clothes. You're not beautiful. You smell, you're ugly. That's the nature of the body. If you're not attached to the body, there's no suffering. But if you're attached, then of course you feel very sad and depressed seeing how your body has aged. So this is why we practice mindfulness directed to the body. It's impermanent, let it go. Don't worry about it. Don't get upset about it. If you're no longer looking as good as you used to, doesn't matter, because what's important is your mind, not the body. Keep your mind free from delusion, free from ignorance. Keep your mind reflecting on the Four Noble Truths, and you'll be happy. Whether the body is good looking or not, doesn't matter so much. So here's a few reflections on the end of Vasa and the reflection on the contemplation of the body. Maybe I'll leave you with these reflections now, and afterwards we can try and answer your questions for you.